What is up, my fellow parents? Hey, Jordan and I are happy to be in your lives and to be a voice of positivity and support for you. We know everyone is listening to this. We got a lot in common. We love our kids. We love our family. We want to be healthy leaders. We want to be the best parents we can be. We want to glean from research and our past and all the good things in the present to learn from that, to bring into our homes. Like, for those of you listening to this, just thank you. Thank you for letting us be a voice in your life. And this episode is for you because one of the other things we have in common is that because we're so into parenting and so into a family life, we might actually struggle with over-parenting. If there's anybody who struggles, who might over-parent their kid, it'd be us. People who are listening to this podcast or involved in right, Jordan? Doesn't kind of make sense?
It's a reality check. Yeah, maybe we do. It's like we force our kids to sit down at the dinner table and eat all that broccoli. And it's like, well, maybe we're over forcing them to do things. Right. Maybe we're jumping in and, wanting them to be absolutely perfect. So we think our way is the best way. And ultimately, you're going to kind of give us an idea of how that will impact our kids. But ultimately, it makes it to where they don't grow up thinking what they want to think or doing what they want to do.
Yeah,
or
right.
saying like, oh, I have a say too.
Yeah, so many of us listening to this, like maybe they felt like they were underparented, like their parents weren't there. They weren't there to emotionally there for them, physically, didn't guide them. I have a lot of clients like, my parent was super passive. I just feel like not involved. If my parent was just a little bit involved, a little bit supportive, a little bit more loving, like I feel like I would be different today. And I don't want to do that to my kid. I want my kid to know, like, I am their cheerleader. I am them. And so, there could be like, it's almost like a little bit of what we've been talking about the last 2 episodes before this about how our childhood shapes us and we can kind of ping or pong from that.
It's like, that game you used to play as a kid. It's like, okay, Sean, would you rather die by fire or would you rather freeze to death? And you're like,
would you rather?
Do I have to pick one of those? So it's like the ultimate question. Would you rather have a parent that was absent or a parent that was overbearing? And obviously, both have huge negatives.
What a question. Ask her that. Oh, my gosh. I don't even know what I would choose because I actually feel like I had both. And can I just pass on that question? I mean,
we should all pass. Like, that'd be tough. We don't want to have to answer that question. God, but maybe we should ask ourselves, do we want to be the over parent or the under parent? And again, is the answer none? Is the answer all the above?
I'll let everyone decide. I'm going to think about that. Here's the backstory for today's episode is I stumbled upon this article from fatherly.com and the title was pretty cool. It says, science suggests parents are taking parenting too far. And I was like, ooh, interesting. Let me read the article. Now, I wasn't a big fan of the article. I didn't really like it. It has some good one-liners. I'll read you the opening right here. And here's how it says. Helicopter parents, lawnmower parents, and snowplow parents. These are largely pejorative labels for mothers involved and over-involved with their kids. The terms are meant to describe parents who feel that in order to raise a successful child, they need to be as tireless, as purposeful as machines. Very dramatic. I like how I read it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I agree with that headline only because I'm seeing, like, my kids have come home from school several days this week saying, we didn't get recess again. They say it's too cold. We canceled school last week because of the idea that it would be cold and there might be ice when there was no rain in the forecast. Right. So it's like we are so worried as a nation that if we do anything, we're going to either, get sued or make parents upset, right? And especially in the world of like our educational system, teachers can't do anything anymore without being ridiculed. There's a
lot of research to back up what you're saying here. Those are just, we could see, antidotes about this and that, but there's empirical data that even states it. And one of the most interesting books I remember even discussing, I even did a podcast or a little video on it. I think it was called The Coddling of the American Mind. And these super smart researchers found out there's some legit stuff that's going on. And so as a generation, I think you'd agree, like we are struggling with over-parenting our kids in this generation, right?
Oh yeah.
So
It's like if we were the bird in the nest, what does the mama bird do? It gets to a point where it pushes the
that's
young
scary,
out of
though.
the
You're
nest.
right, it's
Right? It's
scary.
like go.
Right,
You
but
gotta
parents,
go.
we don't
But we
want
don't
to do that. Yeah, we're
It's
scared
like you're
of that
20, you're
stuff.
30 years old. Move
Yeah.
back in with me. I got the basement for you. It's
Right.
fine.
Yeah. Well, according to a recent study by Cornell University, a majority of parents see world consuming hyper engagement as the best method of child rearing. That's a mouthful.
Okay, so break that down for us. Say it again.
I mean, this is just a quote from this fatherly article.
Sure.
I'll say it again. Okay, Cornell University, a majority of parents
Okay.
see world consuming hyper engagement. I mean, it's just too much. We'll just call overparenting
Okay.
as the best method of child rearing. And then the article continues there. The next line is going all in on kids has become cultural best practice, begging the simple question, does it work?
Does it work?
Ask a scientist and they'll likely tell you no. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Today, Jordan and I are going to share 7 surprising ways.
Ask any grandparent.
Oh, ask any grandparent.
No.
Oh my gosh, ask any. That would be a funny study right there. We surveyed 10,000 grandparents. Does this generation baby or pampy the children, right?
For their children, right?
That's hilarious, dude.
It'd be funny to get their responses too.
That would be. That is 7 surprising ways you might be overparenting your child. Now, here's a little bit more backstory. I read a lot of these articles on overparenting, and I wasn't crazy about any of them, so I made my own list. I picked and choose from some of these articles, and I came up with these 7 things that I think are the most captivating, the most worthy. So Jordan has never heard these 7, so I'm just going to read them as we go, and we're just going to talk about them and as you listen, I just hope that you come with an open mind, ready to laugh and to learn and to be inspired. And so Jordan, are you ready for this? Anything?
Yeah, give me the first. Let's see let's see if it's got some good juice in here.
All right. Yeah. Now, some of these are based on research and some of these are just based on other people's opinions and some are based on all types of things. So the first one that I have, all right, signs you might be overparenting your child. The first one I have, and I have a little, is that giving excessive praise to them.
Oh, giving excessive praise. Okay.
Yeah. What do you thoughts on that?
Let me. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
And you were very wise in telling us the kind of verbiage you would use with your kids.
Yep.
And so we had a situation this week or last week where my son made, let's say, the honor roll, and my daughter didn't. Okay.
Ooh, twins.
And so my daughter feels not smart. She feels like she can't do it. She feels
she actually said stuff like that.
Oh yeah, she goes, I want to tutor. I'm failing. I don't get it. Right. So she's already
at age 9
telling herself that she's not smart enough because she didn't get recognized like her brother did.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right. And let's say it's math, right? So let's say he comes home and he's like, oh yeah, this is how you do division and subtraction, all this stuff. And she's like, I just don't get it. So she doesn't feel smart. So as a parent, my job is to give her words of praise.
Yeah, man.
You are so smart.
Yeah, right.
You're very smart.
That would make sense.
But am I doing it too much? Like this says, I'm over. What's the verbiage? I'm over.
Giving excessive praise.
Excessive.
Right?
I'm giving excessive praise.
To build esteem.
And I'm trying to get her self-esteem back up because it's down.
It really affected her. I'd like to believe that I'd like to say pretty positive on this podcast. But sometimes I get negative, and I don't want to get negative right now. Can I just tell you? All right, please don't judge me because I'm going to tell you something.
What is making you think about? Yeah,
I'm going to say something negative and judgmental, and it's going to come off as bad. I'm just going to be honest with you.
All right, good.
Sometimes when I'm around parents, like at the playground, especially, have you ever been around the type of parent where they're just like constantly praising their child? It's like giving them the baby talk or like, you got this, or I know you can do this. You're a big boy, or you're so smart, or I know you're strong. You can do this. Like, it's like constant. Have you ever been around a parent like that?
Oh yeah.
I think we all have.
Man. We all have.
I feel like so annoying, right? It's like, what is going on inside of you where you're like, you feel like, on one hand, you've heard me talk about the Gottman's teaching of a 5-to-1 ratio. And that could be partly what they teach is that's what they call the magic ratio, where in a marriage dynamic, you're supposed to have, the goal would
5
be
compliments and
minimum
1
5 positive experiences, right?
right.
Or 5 positive words, conversations to every 1 negative. That's like the minimum, right?
Okay.
But so I think that it'd be kind of a big temptation for a lot of parents listening to this right now to maybe take that like too much. They're just constantly Pollyanning
Well,
this
Sean,
positive.
that's our society where, some say everybody gets a trophy. And the argument is like, well, they did something and they should get recognized for it. But then it's like these trophies mean nothing. Then it's like we're just living life. Are we going to have a world of competition to where you have certain people better than others? Is there a point to have the Olympics or not really? Because it's like, at least y'all tried. Good job. Here's your ribbon.
Right.
And I agree. We all should get the recognition of like trying hard, but it doesn't necessarily mean society has to tell us we're trying hard. That's more of like an internal thing.
Yeah.
So from a parenting perspective, I do think it's a parent's job to make sure their kid feels adequate enough to go out into the world, but it also can screw kids up because by the time they hit 18 and they get their first job and they realize how hard life is, they're like, wait, I was just given, dinners, served to me every night. And I have everything telling me that I'm just perfect. And then the reality is like, well, you're not working hard enough. And you're like, wait, but I've worked hard my whole life.
Yeah. Let me ask you 2 questions. I'm going to read a little article because a little paragraph from Lindsay Hutton, and I want to get your thoughts on it. And then I'll have a follow-up question for you. Ready? Lindsay writes, encouragement can go a long way in fostering your child's self-esteem and pushing him to strive to do his best. But some of us have the habit of giving excessive praise even when the child's effort is lacking. The downside of this is that he may never feel the need to push himself to succeed. Think about participations trophies, for example, to all players on the soccer field. The child expecting a higher grade for less work. A study from Columbia University found that children who were continually told they were smart tended to avoid activities they didn't excel at for the fear of failing. I mean, that is classic, like fixed mindset right there. Instead of praising your child, the next time he falls short, talk about what he could do, have done to make the outcome better and what he'll do differently next time. It's important to remember that failure teaches us how to accept disappointment and develop coping strategies to overcome obstacles later in life. I mean, it sounds pretty wise right there, right?
Very wise. And we talk about encouraging the effort, right? Rather than
encouraging the effort,
itself,
praising the effort, positive praise, which is really built on the effort. Here's a little quiz. I got it. Okay. So there's a big study done. You might have heard of this because I've seen it a lot come through my social media forums. I'm going to give you a quiz, right? What do you think the answer is? So a big study was done, published in Frontiers in Psychology. And the researchers split school-age children into 3 groups, Jordan. You ready? Everyone make your vote on which you think the answer is here. I'm going to give you 3 options. Each group was assigned a number of really difficult tasks, right? So I'm thinking elementary schools, right? Maybe 4th, 5th, 6th, right? Now, each group was encouraged by the researchers, by the adults, in one of 3 different ways, right? You with me? One group was praised on a personal trait, like you're a good drawer, right? You are this, right? You are so smart. You, right? You are strong.
You look beautiful.
You look beautiful. You're pretty. You.
Right.
The second group was praised on effort. You did a good job drawing that. Yeah?
Nice.
You worked hard. In the third group, the research didn't say anything. They just gave him a high five. Which group did the best?
I love that. That's awesome.
Which group? Think about your own childhood too. How did your parents parent you?
High five.
When they tried to encourage you, were they were they this parent? Were they that parent? Or were they
like you become an Eagle Scout, which is like super hard for kids. Here you go. High five. Good job. Way to go.
So I can just imagine, some big old Russian American dad just staring at his kid and just like put his hand out, no smile, All right, out of those 3, which one did the best?
Fist bump.
What's your guess?
B.
B. Why do you
I'm going to
guess
go
B?
with B. Bravo. Because we're praising the effort.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we talk about.
The trait.
That's what everybody talks about, including me, praising effort. You're wrong.
I am?
By a lot.
Dang it. Really?
Yeah, man. It was the high five, Doc.
Really?
It was.
The high five did it.
Giving a high five was the best motivator. And the students that received
That's
the
awesome.
high fives were the most persistent and kept going despite making mistakes. Now, I'm going to tell you why I think I'm not surprised by that. All right. Let me tell you a personal story. I play basketball even this morning. I show up at the gym around 5:30 in the morning, and there's one guy there. His name is Keith. He's like 6'3". I think he's actually a radio or he's like what does he do? He works for this large radio organization called K-Love. And Keith is a big,
I love K-Love.
Big
K-Love.
He's a big encourager on the court.
Okay.
So he's always saying, come on, guys, let's go. Good defense.
Right.
Oh, good hustle out there, Sean. Good job. And I mean, everybody likes Keith. He's very, very positive, very talkative, right?
Okay.
But I'm not really like that. I'm not really a big encourager on the court. I'm just pretty quiet when I play. But I kind of get annoyed by Keith.
At the pep talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm just I'm like a freaking 45-year-old man, and I'm just trying to not get injured here and sweat, right? But sometimes if a guy comes up to me and like looks me in the eye and just gives me a high five, like, and like maybe gives me a nod, I'm like, dude,
right,
you're my man. Like, yeah, let's win.
So
this.
Maybe it depends who it's coming from, right?
Or maybe it's just me. Yeah, but what about you? Like,
no, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like the research, like you're saying. I was wrong by a long shot. The high five is successful. But like, if your parents were to give you a high five, is that the same motivator as like someone more stern?
Let's try it. Let's both try it with our kids this week.
Yeah,
don't say anything. Just give these, stoic high fives, maybe a little grin, and let's see how our kids respond. Let's come back next week.
I like that.
Okay. Yeah,
I can already tell
there's actually a ton of research about high fives regarding like the NBA, and like they found that the teams that give each other the high fives normally do the best. And they even found that one of the most valuable player from like about 10 years ago, his name was Steve Nash, and he went to Santa Clara. He's from Canada, and he led the league.
He was so good.
He was so fives, and they showed highlights of him. Like the guy.
Well, it's because he was so small. He had to lift his hand up.
White dude. When you say little, he's probably like 6'2", 6'1", and he couldn't keep his hands away from his teammates. He's just always touching them. And there's this research behind that. Positive touch. Think about the 5 love languages.
Yeah.
So how do we use our words wisely to encourage our kids to praise their efforts without being excessive about it? And that would be where we cross the line. We're like over parenting, like chill the heck out, man. Chill the heck out, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, I could totally see that. I'm going to try it now because I was totally thinking it was 100% the effort. You praise the effort. It makes them want to work harder. But the reality is maybe it's as little as a high five. I remember one time when I was in middle school and I had a class project where you had to do a big, project on a country. And I did one and I did not do well. I got a D. Ooh. Like I almost flunked the assignment. Yeah. And I was talking to my teacher and he's like, listen, you didn't do that well. You didn't even do this, and this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally should have done that. And he's like, but honestly, Jordan, you need to experience failure. You need to know what that's like. So like if we are keeping our kids pepped up on a pedestal and saying, it's okay, you lost. Here's a trophy anyway. You're fine. You're not going to really learn adversity. Yeah. You're not going to learn what it takes to get back up. Yeah. And a counter to that, which at that moment, I just totally did not like. I hated that comment he made to me. I'm like, this is such an excuse, a cop-out. He just wanted me to experience failure, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to when I was in college and I had a professor say something to me that was more of like, hey, I don't think you will make it in this field. You're not going to be successful. I talked about this. And I used that as like propelling me to go forward. Yeah. So sometimes what I'm saying is like this idea of failure or this idea of maybe under-parenting might actually, kickstart our children or people to go above and beyond what they would if you just kept praising them
Well
all the
said.
time.
I want to move on to our second point, but everyone listening, I want to think about this. You know, this is what we kind of, one of the things that I like to bring to this show is like not the surface things like we're, overpraising, but invite people to look under the surface of themselves. Why? What is happening inside of you that you feel like you have to overly praise your child or have to overly fill them with positive words? Number two is going to lead to that, because I picked 7 things, Jordan, that kind of are prickly, right? I like they're going to like prickle or like get people to think. And the second one is definitely one of those. And this is going to hopefully, like in a positive way, prick and really get some people to think. The second way you might be overparenting your child is overscheduling them. Hear me out. Helicopter parents sometimes have unrealistic academic, athletic, or artistic goals for their children. And you know what? It results in a jam-packed schedule. The downside of this, kids may be left with no free time to discover or develop their own interests, thus diminishing their own creativity. And I would say, add to that, their own freedom. Allow your child, the opposite of that would be allow your child to develop his own interest. Try to keep an after-school activities to 1 per season and avoid pushing their child if he decides there's no one he doesn't want to consider pursuing. Like, why does your child have to do year-round swim, year-round softball, travel? Are you sure that is really good for your child? Is that really how is that how, think about what are the positives, what are the negatives that come out of that? And that's why we think about this, like over-scheduling our kids. This could be like not good for their development.
Right. I think of 2 things when that comes to mind. Number one, everybody probably knows the story of Michael Jackson, right? And the over-parenting father who basically kept them in music, right? It led to incredible amounts of success.
That's the problem, right?
That's
the downside.
Is
that a problem? Yeah.
Another thing is, I mean, obviously for him, we know the story of Michael Jackson. He was an amazing American icon, but there were a lot of problems. Right. And then another side of me is a story I heard with a dancer. Some of you guys might know Derek Huff. He was on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
He's been in movies. Amazing dancer. And he seems like a cool guy. Don't know him personally, but he just watches stuff. And he was talking about how he hated dancing as a kid. He did not like it at all. And his mom forced him to dance all the time. And so I haven't asked him personally, but now I'm like, well, maybe that was good for him because he's making a career out of it. And he seems like he's okay. It's a fine line.
Like, what if, it's a fine line. Well, this is why we're not going to define where the line is for you, but I want you to think about we're defining the line right now. For example, here's research published in the Journal of Child and Family Studies have found that overparented children show less autonomy, competence, and ability to relate to others as teenagers, which can result in depression and decreased overall life satisfaction. I mean, that is a heavy quote there.
Those are long-term effects.
But that's the thing. Does your child doing year-round swim team, does that mean they're going to be depressed? Probably not. Right. I mean, swim team's amazing. Year-round softball is amazing. People do travel baseball because it's a community.
Oh, yeah. They build a life around it.
They go on hotel trips together. Yeah. It's like, so who the hell am I or anyone to say that any of these things are negative, right?
They build a bond. They've got friends for life. Yeah.
Those, you know what I think is really
those are
coming
questions
up for me
we all need
like,
to ask.
It's this. Like, this is just another example of one of my favorite cliches. I say it a lot on this show, and I say this a lot. And one of the ways I help my clients in one-on-one sessions or in my VIP is to help them do what I'm about to say. Ready? This is just another example of how you've got to parent the child you have, not the child you want, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Because your son is even in a field.
Can we make a bumper sticker? Can we make a bumper sticker that says that?
Because even your son, I mean, he's in one of those sports, gymnastics, where it can be really competitive and like really
and it's year-round.
Yeah, year-round.
It's a year-round thing.
I mean, right? So you're probably, maybe do you feel any of that tension where your 9-year-old son is just rocking at this awesome sport? He's probably getting really muscular. He's achieving success. If he's done any contests, that must feel so good to go to those meets and to see him win.
We do meets. and he does great, and sometimes he doesn't do great. But again, it's a super tough and technical sport. And, we had to, what you said earlier is, kind of ringing in my head right now, where when it comes to overscheduling them with maybe multiple sports in a
Yeah.
season, and we had that situation,
Mhm.
and we had to really evaluate
Right.
if this was best for him, and we helped talk him through it. Are you interested in this? Do you want to do this? You're getting split in two different areas.
Yeah.
So, and we had to ultimately make a call of maybe quitting one of the
Yeah, yeah.
sports. But it was like a family
Yeah.
decision, and it's been
Uh-huh.
better. It's been better on
Uh-huh.
my schedule. It's better on
Yep.
his schedule. And hopefully we'll see the long-term impacts of him getting better in one specific
I had a
sport.
client like a year ago who I think she was doing some type of sport after school, and it was intense. It was like 2 to 3 hours a day, like 5 days a
Yeah.
week. And the child was very young, like
Ooh.
9 or 10. And the child was now starting to have like some issues with their temper, their mood,
Okay.
their
Okay.
family relationships, outbursts, hormones. So on one hand, this is
Sure.
normal, like 10-year-old stuff. On the other hand, I think I tried to coach the mom by saying, look, like, I think what might be going on here is that your daughter had more emotional capacity for this when she was younger, but she's 10 now. And most 10-year-olds, in my opinion, they don't have the emotional and physical capacity to do a sport 5 days a week for 2 to 3 hours a day. Like, who said that? Like, who told you
Yeah.
that would be normal? Because I'm not saying what's best for your child. I'm just sitting here to think about it. Like, do you really think that this is what is best for your child to be that scheduled, so intense?
That's hard for some of us to digest, because sometimes in the moment we don't know if it's just a hard little speed bump that we've got to get
Mhm.
over, or if this is like a mountain that is not worth
Yeah,
climbing.
yeah.
And ultimately, we are all going to have to face that challenge and that decision on our own. Do we push
Right,
through with our
right,
kids to go to the next hump or the
right.
next side,
Totally.
or do we say, you know what, this is something we need to back off because it's obviously causing
Well
harm?
said. Yeah. I remember when my kids were super young, I said, I'm never going to become one of those parents that does year-round sports. It just sounds exhaustive. It doesn't sound like it's good for the kids. I know a lot of 17-year-olds that did year-round sports. I don't like the way they turned out. I've seen enough. There's so much negativity. But then I've never had a child personally who's excelled in a sport, who loved
Yeah.
it, who wanted to
Right.
just, so who am I to judge, right? If I did, maybe I'd be
Right.
like, yeah, this is, we're going off to, we're going off to the next state for this next tournament. Who knows? So here, but this is
Right.
like, in the transition to this next point is like, if there's one of the main areas I think of when I think of parents, like kind of like living in their own ego, like making it about them and
Mhm.
making parenting about them, it is in that, like, one of the spaces it comes up is in their schedule, in that year-round stuff. It's like these parents, they want their kid to excel at a sport so bad that maybe the parent played
Yeah.
as a child, and they just makes the
Well, I
parent.
mean, for me, it's my retirement plan, Sean. I
Yeah.
mean, I need my kid to work hard to pay for
Yeah.
me when I get older.
It's like there's just some, or the other extreme. This goes back to last week's episode too. Is it just like the parent is so afraid that downtime is going to ruin their kid? Like they're afraid they're going to do drugs, or like
Sure.
a parent would say, you know what, football was so good for me. If I didn't have football, who knows where I would have been. So that's why my kid, we
Right.
got to keep my
Right.
kid in football.
Organized sports is a good thing.
is.
It's a good
It
thing.
is.
But too much of it, like you're saying, you're scheduled too crazy. You don't have enough room to explore other avenues.
Now, number 3, surprising signs you might be overparenting child. Now, you've heard this before, but I'm gonna take a little shovel and go a little deeper. Is you cannot let your child fail. There you go. It's really hard for you to see your child fail in sports,
It is hard.
in school, socially. You don't want to see that happen. So you step in and you pamper, you rescue, you make excuses for this or for that. You don't limit their screens because you don't want to see the pain. You don't let them fail. You just like hold their hand wipe their butts, just like make excuses
Clean up
over and
their
over
mess,
and over
right.
because you just are
Right.
so afraid. What is it going to do to my child's mental health, their self-esteem, if we just let them fail? And I've got compassion for these over parents, but this is not good for the child.
Yeah. As a coach, that's got to be tough because that's happening a lot right now. Is there a way, Sean, that we could practice this idea of letting our kids fail, right? Because it's not hard on the kids as much as it's probably harder on the parents. So it's almost like we parents need to practice letting our kids fail slowly so that when the big fail comes, we're ready for it because it's going to be a heartbreak for us too.
A couple of things come to mind for me. Let me say something that I think is very helpful, but some people might think it's kind of edgy. You know where I see this the most? The most I see this is in parents who have an ADHD child. Let me explain.
Okay.
When your child gets diagnosed with ADHD,
okay,
normally what happens is that one of the parents, it could be both, it's normally the mom, they raise their hand and they're like, I'm in. I love my child. I'm in. I'm going to help them.
Sure.
I'm going to show up. I'm going to do everything I can to help this child. I'm going to talk to their teachers, talk to their counselors, talk to their coaches. I'm going to help this child. I'm going to remind them. I'm going to wake them up. This is like really common. Like I'm going to become a super mom because I love this child and they need my help. Can you imagine like this is like what good parents do?
100%. Makes sense.
But then what happens is that negative things start happening, especially like around age 12, because either A, the child doesn't want this type of parenting anymore. They're like, Mom, leave me alone. Mom, this is annoying. Yeah. Mom, I know.
You're like, do you know how many years I've been putting in
Mom,
to be here for you? And now you're just
don't talk to my
out?
teachers. I got it, Mom. No, I won't forget. I know, right? Or this is also a negative thing. Then the child becomes codependent on the mom. This is so common. Like, why would I do homework on my own? Why would I instigate my own chore when I know my mom's going to remind me and yell at me until I do it? And like, I just know my mom is going to carry me through this thing and she's going to be stressed out. But me, I just get to lay back and do my thing. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, ringing bells for a lot of us right now. We want to do, we go into it with the perfect thought. I want to be there for my kid. I want to be there to help out. I'm going to be there to help out. But it's like, we got to figure out when we've gone too far. But unfortunately, sometimes we don't realize that till it's too late.
Man, I've got sucked in a couple times, dude, helping my kids on their homework or on their projects.
Yeah, I was just doing it last night. I get it. I'm like, the answer is this. How do you not see this?
Here, another little paragraph from Amy Morin, who has an article called Signs You're Overparenting Your Child. She writes, nobody likes watching their child fail. But if you jump in to rescue your child whenever they experience problems, they won't learn from their mistakes. And if you're quick to tell them the right answer every time they're struggling to figure out how to get their homework, or you intervene at the first hint of a problem during a play date, your child will not develop problem-solving skills or a growth mindset. I added that. Sometimes kids need to experience failure firsthand. Recovering from failure provides children with opportunities to discover how they can do things differently the next time. I got a situation like this going on right now. At least it feels like that to me. Like my 7-year-old is at a new school, and it's a very small private school, very small. And she's just having a hard time like connecting with the other kids there. And so she told me, we even chatted about today. I even asked her, said, who are you going to eat lunch with today? And she's 7. And she said, I'll go into the 6th grader room and I eat lunch with my friend who's 11, who's a girl. So I'm just like, my heart's kind of breaking, man. Like, why isn't she hanging out with the other like 7-year-olds?
Kids her age? Yeah.
Like, and she even said, I know she's older, but she's just really nice to me. And she like talks to me and she includes me.
Right.
It's like, I just want to like call the school and go down there. What the heck's going on here?
Can I have lunch with my daughter and show her how to? Yeah. Yeah. Because what are you supposed to do in that situation? You're doing the right thing. I mean, she's got to learn it on her own. I had a situation happen, which was kind of funny. It was both trying to give guidance and understanding they're going to fail at the same time. It's the littlest thing, right? We recently had a big cold snap. Everyone knows this. It got cold over the country. I was going to do some fun with the kids. Hey, we're getting out of the house. Let's go. Grab your jackets. All right. No, I don't need mine. I'm just going to tell you one more time. Grab your jackets. So cold. Okay. It's freezing. I'm going to go see. Step outside. No, I'm fine.
After like 2 seconds.
Okay. Totally. I'm just letting you know you're going to freeze. But hop in the car. Let's go. I knew he was going to fail. I 100%
really good parenting.
We get there 30 seconds after we parked. It's so cold. Why didn't I grab a jacket? He even said, Dad, you were right. I should have listened to you. And I'm like, dude, I freaking told you. And now you get to suck it up in the cold because I'm not going back. Sorry, dude.
Great story, man.
I knew you were going to fail.
Great story, yeah, because you
gotta learn.
There's a gazillion reasons why you could have overparented or forced him or power played or argued or threatened. And because it's easier on you and on your emotions than seeing your child in pain, right? But this is a really good story. Here's another way you might be overparenting. Now, think about all these reasons that you or others might be overparenting. And I think you're hopefully coming to the conclusion, I don't even need to say that out loud. These are emotional reasons why people overparent. It's like they have a hard time, sitting in the emotion of not overparenting. They get the anxiety or they get worried or they get afraid. And same reason that leads to number 4. Why would somebody set up a really strict routine? Well, that is the 4th reason why you might be overparenting your child. You set up strict routines. Ask yourself this question. Why would a parent do this? The article reads, young children need daily structure and a set of bedtime routines. Yes, I agree to that. But by the time your child is 12, okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, we've talked about on this podcast before how children thrive in routines. So we know routines.
This is why I like
good.
how Lindsay Hutton phrased this paragraph here, because she's sticking with an age that I like to talk about a lot. But by the time your child is 12, he should have some freedom in deciding how to manage his time. Allowing your child to decide when and how to do homework, how to spend his free time, when to go to bed, and give proper time management skills he'll need for when he's out on his own. I don't know about letting a 12-year-old decide when he goes to bed, Lindsay, but I don't know. She writes, try to find a good balance when giving your child complete autonomy and dictating every minute of their day. Setting up restrictions such as no television or video games during certain days of the week, or encourage him to use his time wisely and enforce a winding down period or a quiet reading period during that time. I just think that, like routines can be so helpful, but if you're setting up strict routines, like, are you doing this for you or are you doing this for the child? Like, right, that's where things can get sticky.
Well, and sometimes we think we're doing it for the child and that's our excuse, but really we're doing it for us. So we need to ask ourselves that question. Is the routine make sense? Is this something that, all kids should be doing? Obviously, we know we need that routine, but
number 5, I really want to ask you some questions about number 5 because your Kinlan is neurodivergent. He has Down syndrome. And I'm going to ask you some personal questions about this. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. Number 5 sign you might be overparenting your child is you're intervening in their fights amongst their peers, or you're intervening too much into their social life. There's a reason why some parents, they step in really quickly whenever like an argument comes up between siblings. There's a reason that parents just email teachers whenever there's bullying going on. There's a reason why parents just jump in. Now, these are not bad things I'm saying, but again, just remember that line of where we're at. So I think this has become a huge part of like how one of the ways we're different than our parents, Jordan, is we are like really, some of us are really intervening in our kids' struggles in their social life.
Well, and I mean, to be honest, we know how brutal kids can be. Shoot, we know how brutal adults can be. Kids are nasty. I mean, I'm listening to some of the way the kids are talking to my twins, and I don't have as much sympathy for them because I know they can handle themselves. But like, there's society as a general can understand usually when someone maybe have a learning disorder
Right.
or have a
Right.
problem, right? And they know that they need to maybe simplify something or explain it again, or maybe you have someone that's blind and can't see, and we need to have
Mm.
someone there to help them out. So like in society we're doing a much better job to trying to be inclusive and all this. But sometimes with kids,
Mm.
they don't see that. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have filters yet. They can be absolutely brutal. And so for us with
Yeah.
Kinlan, we are very
Yeah.
open to communicating to obviously
Okay.
my other two children and all
Uh-huh.
their friends that Kinlan is a little slower in
Okay.
learning a few things. He can't do the same
Mm-hmm.
things physically
Mm-hmm.
as others. But also with that, I have to treat him as a typical child in
Right.
a way where I'm not underneath him at the jungle gym
Yeah.
every second to make sure he doesn't slip and
Yeah.
fall and hurt himself. I got to be like, dude, climb that rock on your own. And if you fall,
Man.
that's okay. We'll get back up and try again and put a
Yeah,
band-aid on,
man.
right? But
Yeah.
it's different. We've talked about some of the things that will allow us to turn
Okay.
red, right? To
Yeah.
rage, to get upset. And one of our episodes, I talked about a moment where I let Kinlan, he runs away. And I'm like, dude, if you're going to run
Uh-huh.
away, bye.
Yeah.
I'll watch you from a distance, but hopefully you'll come back because I'm not going to run
Mm-hmm.
after you
Yeah.
every second
Good.
play this game. Well, we did that situation in a
Oh.
parking lot, and it
Oh,
made
yeah,
my
you've told
wife
that
turn red.
story.
She did not like that
Right.
moment.
Right.
Not in this moment. Someone could hit him, and so someone could have said, "Is she over parenting? Am I under parenting?" So we all have to ask that question ourselves.
Yeah.
I was just trying to allow him some freedom to walk with us as a family and not have to grab him
Yeah.
every second.
Yeah.
So there are
Right.
complexities to
So
everyone's
complex.
parenting journey about what you should and
So
shouldn't do.
complex. We had this situation where that same 7-year-old was having some really positive play dates with a new friend. But after the play date,
Great.
she would tell us, "I don't really like the way this friend is treating me," and then she shared examples, and
Example.
those were not positive
Okay.
choices, right? Including one of the choices was let's do this one thing and not tell your parents. So now this
Oh,
girl is
yeah, that's not
asking for
good.
more play dates with my daughter. My daughter is saying, "I don't want to do it anymore," but
Sure.
she keeps asking. So it kind of put
Right.
Danielle and I into a pickle. Like, do we just keep kind of like white lying or just like avoiding the topic? Like, "Yo, you were just really busy this week," or not? Right.
Oh, to the other parents,
But
right.
so
Okay.
Danielle did something that I'm really glad she did. And in a very cool, loving, appropriate, wise way, she talked to the mom on the phone and just said, "Yeah, there's been a couple things that have gone down." And so is that over parenting? Right? I don't think it was, but this is why we're here. We're just on that line. Right? And Kenzie was glad she
Right.
did. And then what happened was this friend was approached by her mom. And I think on her own accord, she wrote my daughter like an apology letter saying, "I'll treat you better next time." So, yeah,
Mm.
I think
So we'll
we'll
see,
see.
right?
We'll see.
Yeah, this is
We
all.
don't
That's
want to
that's an amazing story because a lot of us have been in that situation, right? It's like, what do you
Yeah.
do? And I think what you did was the right thing, especially if you got the parent gnawing at you, saying, "Hey,
Yeah, because I want to be honest. I think it'd be under parenting
Right.
if we're like, no, just suck it up. She's a good friend. You have to play with her, right? Or would it be
Yeah.
under parenting if we
No.
just even avoided the topic and never talked to this other parent? I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
this is why we're talking about these
I don't
things.
know either. And I don't know what I'm going to deal with if I have a bully situation where
Mhm.
there's a bullying
Yeah.
my kid. I mean, I will
Yeah.
probably step in when I probably shouldn't. Maybe
They
do it
should, by the way.
themselves.
That's my advice. You got to
Do it
teach the
themselves.
child because
Yeah.
your child going to the
Just go in,
teacher.
punch him in the face,
That
get it
sometimes
over
that's
with.
what it takes. Sometimes you have to communicate. You should communicate with your words
Sometimes they do
first,
that. I know.
and sometimes it takes an act of physicality, not necessarily punching someone in the face, but that I've been around a
But I
lot
know
of
what you mean.
bullying type situations. But here's a quick. Tell me a quick insight because this will be Kinlan's second year of playing t-ball. How old is he?
He'll be
And
5.
I think you told me
right
in
around
an
the corner.
earlier
He's almost 5
episode
years
about
old.
how, somebody gave the kids on the team a speech about how Kinlan has, Down syndrome. So what's it like? Because you just told me before we recorded this episode that he is going to play another year of T-ball. And so do you
Yeah.
want him to play T-ball?
Yeah.
Are you excited about that? Are you concerned with the social
Yeah.
stuff?
I mean, I would love it if he could do all kids sports, but I know the reality is he's not quite there. Like basketball would be fun, but I mean with baseball right now, it's the easiest thing and he loves getting together with the kids. He just doesn't quite understand everything right now. But
Yeah.
again, he's 5. A lot of the 5-year-olds don't. But it can be tiring from a parent's perspective. I mean, we got to be there with them at bat, and kids in T-ball, parents in T-ball know this, right? You got to be there with them on the bases, and he runs around, and it can be tiring from a parent's perspective. But I also know it's good for him to do this. It's good for him to be with his peers, his typical peers, and to learn how they're going to, play a sport or go to school. My biggest fear right now is going from preschool to kindergarten. That's going to be crazy. And then having him compete on an intellectual level with typical children, it's going to be much harder for us parents. Oh yeah, typical class with all his other kids, and he's gonna have to try and learn what they're gonna learn. And I know it's gonna be very difficult for him. Ultimately, it's gonna be more difficult for me and Danny. But it can be very tiring. And I mean, you could see how tired folks are who have children with a disability. You can see it in their eyes. They just having to do so much. But the question is, at what rate am I overparenting? I discuss things with my siblings or my his siblings, my other kids, of he's going to do things that aren't typical, and I need you to be a good big brother and big sister to help him, and treat him a little bit softly. Right? Is that me babying him? I hope not, but he might need that, just like some other folks in the real world might need some extra attention because they've got something
for anyone
as well.
who struggles with overparenting, I have a tip for you. Think of someone in your life who has a challenging child or a neurodivergent child that you really like, you really admire. You like how they parent. Jordan, I'm thinking about you. And so they've been able to get up to that fine line that we're talking about in this episode without crossing it into overparenting. And that's, I think, how I see you and your wife, Danny. It's like, if there's anyone that would be tempted to do overparenting, you would think it'd be parents of a child who has Down syndrome. But you're just like telling story after story about, hey, we know that line is there. We're not going to cross it because it just wouldn't be good for us. It wouldn't be good for our mental health or marriage. It wouldn't be good for our mindset. It wouldn't be good for the other kids. You'd be like, right? It's like you couldn't do this episode if you think about this. You could not even do this podcast if you were this worn out parent. You were exhausted. You're like, Sean, I can't do a podcast. I got 3 kids. I got a job. Kinlan needs me all the time.
Therapies.
I got no time for nothing. I'm exhausted. My marriage is on the rocks. The fact that you're even here is one of many examples of how you are kind of like not overparenting this child. And wow, man, good job.
That's great perspective. I don't think about it like that. Everybody here, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people know that I'm a big movie buff. I love watching movies. And Sean, I don't know if you ever saw that movie. It was called Wonder.
Good. Incredible movie.
So good, right? And so hard. Julia Roberts, they've got a boy that looks different. And he's been homeschooled, but he wants to go to a regular school. But from a parent's perspective, that was so hard. The ridicule he got when he went, but that kid overcame all those obstacles. And it's an amazing story. Wow. And it really is a feel-good story. But like, that's what us parents have to go through, is like letting our kids get into the real world, which can be very hard.
Yes. All grandparents everywhere are going to love what I'm about to say. Number 6 sign that you might be over-parenting your child is that
too many school days, too many snow days, too many work or from home
Number
days.
6 sign, you try to control how others treat your child. Here's some words from the article by Amy Morin.
You go say sorry now.
You find yourself frequently arguing with teachers, coaches, daycare providers, other caregivers about their rules or the way your child is treated. It may mean you're overparenting. Helicopter parents call teachers to demand their child get a better grade or this one's funny.
What?
Or they forbid grandma to allow the children to eat any sugar. I don't like the way that's phrased. It's too weird.
What is up with that, though? It's so true. My mom and dad come and they just pump my kids full of sugar. I'm like, what are you? And then they just drop them off with me. And I'm like,
no,
thanks.
Kids should not be
for
having
that.
a ton of sugar. But again, I'm not a grandparent. Am I over-parenting?
Jeez.
We minimize sugar a ton and eliminate it mostly. But that is kind of, but there is that line, right? Like, where do we,
that's funny.
Like, where do we, draw that line where we're just like, we're on the bad side of the line. We're calling everybody. We're telling our grandparents, no, don't say this. Don't say this. We're calling our parents. Don't talk my child this way. Don't say the child this way. This is what we do here. This is what we do here. There's got to be a line where like, hey, man, yes, we want to incorporate and teach your parents, the child's grandparents, to kind of adopt and support your parenting. But there's got to be a line where like, now you're just weird. You're weird and you're like annoying and like, it's okay.
Oh
like they're different than you. Yeah. You're
right.
Like just chill out. You know what I mean? Like find other ways of setting boundaries with your parents, the child's grandparents, and just become this like, well, that's not what we do here. We do this parenting. That's what we say. Well, right.
Mm-hmm. It's like that movie, Nanny 911, that show that you talk about sometimes, where the nanny comes in like, "This is what you're doing? No, this is not what you need to be doing."
She's straight up. Yeah, she's straight. That's how.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why that show became so popular, because she was so like intense, abrupt,
right? It's like, no, this is the way. Yeah. This is my way or the highway, or you can go do it on your own. And I honestly, when folks are reaching out to others for help, I like that approach. I'm not going to soft pitch this. It's like, I hope I would assume you're kind of like this too, Sean. It's like, I've heard some of the ways you've handled some previous clients, and it's like, no, this is the way it's going to go. Trust me on this. And ultimately it works out, but it's a more tough knuckle approach.
Here's last number 7 sign that you might be over-parenting your child is how you handle chores. Let me explain. Yeah.
Me as a parent?
On one extreme, you've got this type A, military. Make your bed every morning. Everything's got to be ship-shape. This is how you organize your shoes. Your clothes have got to be color coordinated. Yep. What is this? There's a crumb on the ground. Pick this up. We don't leave our shoes here. I mean, wow.
I wish my house was
intense.
Like that.
On the other extreme, you've got the over-parent who actually doesn't even give their kids any chores. They do it all.
We do it all.
They do it all.
They do it all.
Because they're afraid. They're emotional. They don't want to deal with the conflict.
Well, Sean, my kids have a lot to do. They have to wake up. They got to go to school. They've got to have time to like decompress. They got to play with their friends. They don't have time to put their clothes away.
Here's what Lindsay writes. She writes, your child lives in your home and should play a part in keeping it clean and tidy. Children as young as 2, I agree, can put their toys away with helpful instruction. By the time they're preschool age, they should know they're responsible for putting their toys away on their own. As your child gets older, he should be responsible for more age-appropriate household tasks, such as laundry, helping to clean, and other basic things, learning to be responsible and self-sufficient, taking pride in their environment. And we had a whole episode on how, and tricks and tools to get your kid to really rock it with chores, family teamwork, and contributions. I am so into chores. One of the reasons why is because there's research now that's saying your kid having daily chores is going to be so good for their mental health and their future success. That's pretty wild. We don't have a lot of research that says stuff that your kid does when they're 6 or when they're 10 can actually lead them into future success, but chores is one of them.
Good. That means it's less than I got to do. Right now, I'm trying to get the kids to turn off the dang light. Like, guys, when you leave the bedroom or the bathroom, turn the dang light off. You know you're old when I got to turn off the lights on my friggin' kids.
Once, a long time ago, 10 years ago, and I was just checking in with her. I was like, Latasha, so that's a lot of chores for your son every day. Are you sure you want him to do that? And she says, oh, Sean, she says something I really liked. So, Sean, this is what it's like when you grow up in a Black family. Like, you do daily chores here. Like, this is what I want to do. And I was like, I just liked her passion. I liked her intensity. I learned something from her that day. And I was like, you know what? You know what? If she wants to get her kids in that type of intensity with chores, like, let's do it. Like, kids are, And I
Yeah.
actually copied a lot of what I learned from her that day. And my kids have just been so excellent with chores. They don't complain. They rock it. They're polite about it. If sometimes they'll ask me, like Miley, my 14-year-old has a ton of chores every day. And she'll sometimes ask me, Dad, can you help me with the dishes tonight? And sometimes I say no. Like, I've been working all day. I'm exhausted. And sometimes I say yes. And I love to. And sometimes I just do it without her asking. And sometimes I say no today. But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I love you, and I will do it. The next time you ask me, you can count on me to do it. So it's like almost like a free ticket. You know what I mean?
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
What's
That's nice. I
what's
like
one of
that.
your biggest takeaways from today's
I want to be more
episode
like that.
about over parenting?
My biggest takeaway of overparenting is obviously the idea that we all are self-reflecting on how we are parenting, right? But the big thing is there is, as you can hear, there isn't like one specific formula that we could all follow that is going to be successful for everyone. There's general guidance and a general kind of rule here on what you should and shouldn't do. But again, as Sean said in his bumper sticker, we need to parent the kids we have and not the kids we want to have, right? And so it's going to be different for all of us. Maybe the strict chores house is your house. Maybe it's a little bit more lenient, but I'm going to be more strict on homework or something else. The bottom line is we have to be active, and we've just got to be smart about it and not just be extreme on either side.
You know, one thing that we didn't discuss that I'll leave I think one of the biggest takeaways for me that's on my mind, because I'm just thinking about my own family right now. I think about my wife.
Sure.
And how much I respect her. And I'm thankful to have her 20 years of marriage, because she's a sounding board. I'll ask her, hey, should we do this? Should we let it go? Should we be loose? Should we step in?
Right.
And so I think one of the keys to thriving in this line that we keep talking about is don't do it alone. Talk to your co-parent, talk to your spouse, talk to a friend. It's like, bring people into your parenting. Like, don't parent in a little vacuum where you're just going all by your own mind. I think that'd be a great tip. Ask the family coach. That's what I say. Ask people for advice and their feedback on so open your mind.
It takes a village. It's not just you doing it by yourself. There's people out there willing to help, and it's been great when you get that advice. Think about the one Sean just shared. He adopted some of that into his own household, and it wasn't even his idea.
So, hey, man, just thankful for you. My attitude of gratitude as we wrap today's episode is I'm just thankful that I have a wife who, whenever I get scared, I get tempted to overparent, or whenever I get emotional or lazy and I get tempted to underparent, that I have a wife named Danielle who is bold enough to tell me her opinion and to kind of guide me in this. That's something that I wanted to share.
Yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work, baby. I'm thankful for the idea of failure. Mine as well. I mean, 9 out of 10 jobs and businesses fail before they succeed. It takes failure to get up again and to keep going. And the idea of us adopting that into our parenting and allowing that to happen is only going to mean more success for our kids. So don't be scared of it. Let's embrace the idea of failure.